So it is time to get back on and start another monthly reading vlog where I fill you in on all of the books as I read them over the course of the month. I am just finishing up at work and I have to get home to walk Poppy, but I wanted to jump on and tell you about a book that I finished, One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. And I finished this actually on like the 1st or the 2nd of the month, but I've just been feeling really uninspired to talk about it. And honestly, a little bit in a reading slump because of it, and not for positive reasons, unfortunately. This was a priority read. It is one of the books that you've convinced me to read. This is a book that I had really high hopes for, I think is the issue. And it was like when it originally came out, I was interested, and then I didn't read it because of mixed reception. And it was just like, it was the people that kept talking about it over, like since that time, that slowly convinced me that like, no, actually this might still work for me. Like this might be a really great romantasy-esque fantasy for me to read. And so in thinking about it, I keep feeling like I'm trying to give it a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. Like I'm trying to like be a little bit more positive about it than the reality of how I felt in reading it. So this is a story following, I've already forgotten the main character's name, Elsbeth. Elsbeth has a monster within her. In this land, magic is sort of like, it's mostly banned, or if you get magic because of this illness, this like fever infection that takes over people, then it's bad. And those people are essentially like, those kids are like rounded up and killed unless they have a particular magical skill that is helpful for the king. The only magic that they're okay with comes from these Providence cards. There's, I think 78, it was like, there's 12 of a certain one, 11 of another one, 10 of another one, etc. You know the drill. The setup then from here goes into her meeting some people who are trying to round up a complete collection of the cards, which is supposed to like fix magic, cure the people who are getting ill, like fix this like mist that is slowly encroaching and taking over the country. So she gets like grouped up with some people relatively early on and into this. And it's like imminent. There's like a timeline. They need to finish their collection of the cards. And they are already only missing 2. And they particularly want her help because she can see like the magical cards like glowing in her vision because of this monster. So then it makes no sense that as the plot goes on, they don't always include her in the plans to find the cards. We're like, well, we have to be seen at this other thing, so, well then why did you need her? Why did you want her to join in? Like it just, that part was annoying. The main character actually had little to no personality. I think, honestly, I wrote that on Goodreads, like I don't think she had any personality whatsoever. So then it made everything that she said and did a little bit of a surprise, and not in a positive way, because it just felt totally random. It just felt like whatever needed to be said or whatever needed to be done in the moment, because she didn't have like an established personality to be informing those choices. So you weren't really like, nothing tracked. The romance I was on board with because I generally want romance in my fantasy. So, you know, I picked up every little crumb that I could get there and leaned into it. But really, if you think about it, like it actually like happens pretty quickly. They're not necessarily saying declarative things, but they're definitely feeling declarative things. So overall, I really like wanted it to be a new favorite. I wanted it to like really, really work for me. I wanted it to make me excited about this fantasy romance and about picking up the sequel, because it's a duology, and like I love duologies. I love to just in, out, over, done, complete story, wrap it up, check off a series, you know? But I just felt the whole time like I was trying to like it a lot more than I actually liked it. Or there were so many things that kind of bothered me, from like the lack of personality, the conveniences of some of the plot, as well as like the lack of urgency, despite the like established urgency at the beginning. Then there's just like, they don't actually seem to be doing any planning on finding these cards, or things just like happenstance work out for them sometimes. I found the conversation that our main character had with the monster in her head would take up like a lot of the story. Like a lot of the dialogue is actually between her and this monster. And I'm forgetting the most annoying part is that the monster speaks in like cryptic rhymes the whole time, which is just not my thing. I'm also really, really picky about, is it epigraphs where where authors start a chapter with a little tidbit of information? I think these are overused. I think these are overused so much, and if it doesn't have a purpose, it shouldn't be there. And if the purpose is just ooh, atmosphere, no, I don't want it. You're wasting my time. Get to the story. The unfortunate part about this one is that sometimes the epigraphs would be helpful. They would give you information. I feel like they were lifted from a text from the story. So sometimes it was giving you important information, but it was almost like she didn't have enough important information to begin every single chapter. So the rest of it is just or repetitive. So that was really annoying because I couldn't just skip them because sometimes they would actually fill me in. And on that note, there's a really obvious element to this situation with the monster that our main character, who has had 11 years to figure this out, oblivious. So that was really, and there's a moment at the beginning where she gets a little bit more information about a dream, and it's this is a unique situation. He's normally in her dreams, but she doesn't normally see the monster's dreams. She's suddenly in the monster's dream. She there's some imagery going on, and I'm I got it. This was early on in the book. I was oh, he's so and so, and da 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 da, and she painfully, slowly pieces that little tidbit together over the course of the book. And I don't know if it's supposed to be a reveal. It's presented in a shocking da 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 da. This is I've deep down I've known this all along. Have you? Have you known it all along, Elspeth? So it has put me in a little bit of a slump, but additionally because I don't really have any books that I want to pick up, or I don't have any audiobooks right now. I'm getting one soon, it looks like, at the library, so that will be helpful. And I have been reading Magic Bites by Ilona Andrews. I think this is the start of I don't remember the name of it, it's the Kate Daniels, is that what it's called? I have been curious about this. My strategy now is, okay, if hyped new romantasy doesn't work for me, maybe really, really old school romantasy is what I'm looking for instead. The writing is definitely older and not particularly my taste or style, but I'm about 20% in and I'm starting to get interested in the world at least. So we'll see. Maybe that'll be the surprise series that I binge through this year, the Kate Daniels series. Is that the name of it? I could be wrong. Pretty soon. We're gonna do a half day and go meet up with a friend and his daughter as well and go to this art installation thing that's downtown that looks really, really cool. It's the winter holiday period right now in Denmark, so all of the schools are the schools for the big kids are closed. So he has it off with his daughter and we're gonna meet up and go do this fun thing. So we always talk about meeting up and never actually do it. So we thought we'd have to get one in the books and then it'll become more of a regular thing. So I'm just getting ready for that, but I finished a book I need to tell you about, and that is Magic Bites, I think, by Ilona Andrews, and this is the first book in the Kate Daniels series. February so far has been kind of crappy. I'm feeling really uninspired about reading. Obviously, One Dark Window didn't go the way that I wanted it to. There's another fantasy romance book that I was also taking away at that I'm just finding dreadfully boring, but it's part of a series that I want to keep reading in, so I have to get through this couple in order to hopefully have other couples in the series work for me. I picked up Magic Bites really randomly. My thought process here was if current romantasy isn't working for me, maybe I will try out older fantasy or urban fantasy with romance in it, maybe old, maybe classic not classic, maybe older stuff like this works better for me. Now I think it was pretty rough. I gave it a 3-star. The writing was very typical of the time period. The main character is super badass who's terrified a little bit on the inside but can't help being confrontational with everything that they say to the people that they're talking to.
I had heard that this was a really slow burn romance, that the like doesn't like they don't really get together until like book 4, but that there's like mild flirting and maybe like the occasional kiss or makeout scene before that. I had a guess really early on in the book who the romantic pairing was going to be with, like who the guy was going to be. And then somebody else was introduced, and I was just like, oh no, it's going to be this guy. And I kind of like did a little casual looking without like actively seeking, but like if I look up the series and the romance, will I stumble upon the name? And for sure is the person that I didn't necessarily want it to be. Just because it's like big, bad, super powerful, not big, bad, but like big, powerful magic guy. Ugh. Anyway, we're set in our world. It's an urban fantasy. The time period is pretty vague, and it's set in Atlanta in the US. And the idea here is that like technology went too far, and so like magic rose up to tear it all down, and magic just like exists in the air and the atmosphere, and it like eats away old technology. So like old skyscrapers and old technology like doesn't work when magic is flaring, and then like magic will drop and like all of their technology will work. So they like have cars sometimes for when magic is down, but then they have like the other magically powered vehicles or transportation, or just like they ride horses because that works all the time. And anyway, that's the setup. And we're following Kate Daniels, who is like a merc or mercenary at the beginning of the first book, and her guardian that she like grew up with is murdered at the beginning of the book, and she manages to like finagle herself into the investigation so that she is the one like working towards figuring out who killed her guardian. And she gets wrapped up into like this like battle or war or like brewing tension between the people who are like the humans who are really, really into like power and magic, and they and necromancy, and they like pilot vampires like using their minds, and then also like the shapeshifters and like those peoples, and there's like the order, who I didn't really get a good sense of what the order does, to be honest. Hopefully that'll be explained more. It was just like all very, very simple writing, like very, very basic, just what it is. Again, there's like the really obvious main character, like heroine from this time period, who is edgy and a badass and rough around the edges and good with a sword, and obviously she has like some secret magical powers that it was always foreshadowed, and I think it was at a certain point became really obvious what the situation there is. Regardless, I had an okay time in that I could very easily, like, there was nothing so upsetting or confrontational. It is like pretty dark and gory, surprisingly so. But there was nothing so off-putting about this that I was like, I hated this, I'll never read anything again. I could very easily see myself picking up the next thing in this, like the next book in this series, and continuing on. Like, Kristen of last year would definitely read. Poppy always has dreams when I am in here filming. I could very easily see myself reading until we at least get further on in the romance, like, so like reading until at least the 4th book to see if I'm like sold on the romance. But Kristen of 2025 is going to be like, you know what, that is how you have years that wind up being meh. You continue on in series that you acknowledge are just kind of meh in the first book, even though I've heard like the first book isn't the best representation of the series, obviously, like that often goes without saying. But then I'm taking all of that time away from books that have the potential to be better than meh, when I know that these are almost certainly going to be only okay for me. So for now, I'm actually going to pause on that, and like I'm not going to continue on. I'm going to learn from past mistakes or past reflections from the year, and I'm going to instead read something else. But I'm still not even like that excited about what I have coming up. I just got a library book, The Endless War by Danielle L. Jensen. And this is one of my priority books for the year, so I'm going to read it because it became available. I'm going to read it. But I am like a little like meh about this couple, and really it's like another romantasy where it's like I want to see what happens next in this series. I'm not reading it for this couple, which I didn't love overly in The Inadequate Heir. I don't get my Everend subscription started up again until, like, it's on pause right now and it doesn't start back up again until the end of February. I thought it was the beginning of February. It's the end of February, and I just have like nothing else is available at the library. I'm not like feeling anything in particular that is available on Kindle Unlimited at the moment, and really what I want is audiobooks, and I just don't have access to any right now, which is a little bit unfortunate. Here's what we'll do with the Kate Daniels series. If you feel like it gets like way better, and it gets way better quickly, like within the next 4 books, let me know. I'm not saying I'm not saying I'm never going to keep reading in this, but I'm saying like I'm definitely not going to immediately just keep reading and binging because I have nothing else going on in this series. I am going to try like to find better elsewhere. But if you feel like I'm cutting off this series too soon, then let me know down below. Or if there's a different Ilona Andrews series that you feel like would be better. I've also heard good things about the Innkeeper series, something like that. Innkeeper's Daughter, Innkeeper series, something to do with an innkeeper. I've heard good things about that one as well. Is it more romance forward? Is it set in the same world? Is it a continuation of Kate Daniels that I need to read first? Let me know your thoughts on Ilona Andrews. What should I do? Down below.
We're only a month and a half into the year, and of me generally paying a little bit closer attention to like the ratings that I'm giving books and sharing them with you. And already I am reminded of why I hate rating books, like giving books a specific technical number. It's not reflective of the book, and yet an overall Goodreads average could have an impact on somebody picking up somebody's book. And that makes me feel like a little bit distressed. I'm a little bit riled up too right now about this Asunder situation, which I'll tell you about. It's not related to why I'm fired up about this rating system though. So I'm reading this book, Earl Crush. It is a historical romance where an heiress has been corresponding. She's been like writing these political pamphlets under a pretend name. And she's been corresponding with this guy, sharing political opinions. And he's an earl, but with a crumbling castle. And she's an heiress with no title. And so she decides to show up to his house, or to his estate, and propose marriage of mutual convenience. Something like that is what she describes it as. And she shows up, and this earl's like, I have no idea who you are. I haven't been writing to you. And they really quickly turns out that it is the earl's younger brother who has been pretending to be this earl and writing to her. And he wants to get in touch with his brother because the last time the brother was visiting, he like stole something, an invention that the earl made that could be dangerous in the wrong hands. And so the two of them decide to, comb through the letters that they've been corresponding to try to figure out where this brother like is in hiding, essentially. And it has this like kind of fun political plot. I'm at the 74%, I'm 75% of the way in. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with this book. It was a little bit hijinksy, like a little bit too comical in the start for my personal preference. And a little bit too instant attraction, I guess, of being like, oh my, I can't stop thinking about this person, and like, oh, her nightgown reaches the floor, like, it shouldn't be giving me these thoughts. Like it's a historical romance. But this is the issue. There's nothing wrong with this book. It doesn't really deserve a 3 because in the right hands, it could be absolutely beloved. I picked it up because somebody who I follow, who does read a lot of romance, had a really great time with it. But it's just not actually the right book for me in this moment. And I'm not really a big historical romance person in general. And I'm really only listening to it because I don't have any other audiobooks available to me right now. And I almost DNF'd it at like the 20% mark, but decided to keep going because, well, actually, I like listened to another audiobook became available, listened to that whole other thing, a whole other audiobook, and then came back to this one because I don't really have anything else to listen to on audiobook right now. And yet I find myself struggling to think about what I would give this out of 5, you know, because I feel this sense of I must keep track of a number. I don't know. And so it doesn't deserve a 3, but I tend to reserve, I mean, don't get me started on how I reserve 5 stars for books that I feel like are new favorites. And I feel like with 4 stars, they're books that I feel like I really, really liked this. I really enjoyed it. It just like wasn't perfect or whatever. And so then this makes me feel like this is a 3, but it's not an objectively 3-star book. It's just not the right book for me right now. And this is why I would much prefer to tell you about how I feel about books than give people numbers and give authors this like objective number. Should I just start rating everything 5-star, but then actually like put details? Should I just give everything a 4-star and then put details in like the review comments? Unless my opinions change drastically, like if something happens in the final quarter of this book that drastically changed my opinion, I'm probably not gonna tell you anything more about this book. I'm not gonna update you on this book because it's just totally fine. It's just not the right book for me right now, and that's really unfortunate. There we are.
Crazy what a difference like 2 to 3 days will make on how a month feels so short. Like February flies by, but maybe it's because everybody says that January feels like it's several years long, like maybe just in comparison to January feeling really long at the end of the year with like the weather and the light and all the things, and then by comparison February feels really short. I don't know, but either way, we're suddenly basically at the end of the month. I might finish one more book. So I finished Earl Crush. I think I was like at like the 75% when I was like ranting about my frustration with giving star ratings. Anyway, I did finish it, and actually I wound up feeling relatively positive overall with the story. It went a different route than I was predicting at the very end, so I actually really appreciated it. And it was like I had a smile on my face when I was reading the conclusion and all those things. It's just like I don't think that for that moment in time it like wasn't exactly what I was looking for, and the star rating suffered for that, and that just feels so silly to me. In addition to finishing Earl Crush, I've actually read 2 romantasy books that are part of a romantasy vlog that is going to be coming out hopefully not too far away. I actually only have like one more book to read for that. So those 2 books were Heartless Hunter and To Poison a King, and I have one more book to read for that project vlog. So when that comes out, you'll be able to see my like in-depth thoughts about those 2 books. I do a 50% thoughts point and a how I feel about it at the ending, and just essentially the project, like that project vlog is like trying to find romantasy that actually works for me, because in general I have been feeling really skeptical about popular hyped romantasy books. So you can find my full thoughts on that in that vlog when it is going to be coming out. It'll definitely be coming out in March. And then the final thing that I have finished since I last checked in with you is Two Can Play, the Ali Hazelwood novella contemporary romance that came out at the end of last year. I think it came out in like November, December, whatever, in the second half of last year. She had 3 new releases last year. That's crazy. Does she actually still do her STEM job, or is she a full-time author now? She must be. This is Two Can Play, and it is about two video game developers who their respective companies are on a shared bid to design a particular game. And the idea was that because there's really bad history and bad blood between all of the employees that work for these two companies are like kind of, they're not actually rival companies, but like everybody that works at each of the companies kind of hates the other person. So they go away on a retreat. They're like the organizer of the company that is like wants them to make the video game, sends them off on a winter retreat together to see if they could potentially like mend some bridges in order to build or create this game together. And what was interesting with the novella, like the element that this is a novella, is that our main character spends at least a third of the book explaining the backstory of why she feels a little bit off or uncomfortable. Like, it's not like a hate to love per se, but she spends a third of this novella explaining the weird tension between her and the love interest, Jesse. This guy was part of an interview that she had that was really, really crappy, like several years ago, 6 years ago. But then the next time that she runs into him, he kind of pretends that he doesn't know her, and the vibe is really weird and uncomfortable. And then like from then on, for several years of interacting with each other at like various conferences and various cons and all of the things, I think the wording that she used was aggressively indifferent to her, when he actually generally was like a really nice guy and relatively social with everybody else. And this, of course, culminated in a mistletoe situation, as it always does. And they wind up under mistletoe together. And her family's like really loud and boisterous, like kiss, 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 whatever. And he's like hard pass. And so ever since like that event, that mistletoe event a year ago, she has like kind of been like angry and dislikes him, when in fact she's carried on a torch for him for several years. So that's the setup. And they are both they're like both the lead designers for this potential situation. And they're trapped in this chalet at a work conference that had suspiciously few ice-breaking games for it to be a corporate work retreat. And I'll let you, it's a novella again, so it's like there's not really that much more there. It's I guess pretty steamy for a novella, in that things progress, and I liked where it ended it for also being a novella. I appreciated that we left it like open, and it takes place over like a very short amount of time period, right? So I liked where we left it, considering the fact that it was a novella. I enjoyed it as I read it over the course of yesterday. Like, it was very easy to listen to novella. Our main character was not as fumbly, odd girl in STEM as a lot of her other main characters can be. She seemed like a very reasonable, just kind of normal person, to be honest. So that was at least refreshing. But our hero was definitely all heroes that Ali Hazelwood has ever written, pretty much. At least all of the ones that I've read. I was not planning on reading Deep End because I don't do college romance, like, at all. I am 0% interested in reading romances between people of that general age in a college setting. It's just not for me. But I heard good things about Deep End by other people who also are not into college romances, so that made me a little bit more curious, and I did put it on hold at the library. So will I read Deep End, Ali Hazelwood's other new release that's coming out, or it's already out, something like that? Yeah, probably. So I'm gonna probably check it out, but I'm going into it very, very skeptically, that the setting, or like with the knowledge that age group and setting is probably not the best one for me. So if I don't like it, it's almost more certainly because of that than because of the story itself. I've also picked up my reread for Painted Devils that I wanted to complete before the third book, Holy Terrors, comes out in April, and I have been slogging away at The Endless War, the fourth book in the Bridge Kingdom series, which is one of my priority reads for this year. It's one of my 25 books to read in 2025, and it has just been a slog. This couple just isn't it for me, unfortunately. I find it both melodramatic and also like I don't care. And our main character, our heroine is just, I mean, it's a dual POV, but our heroine is just a little bit too, I want to be just like the most best person ever and do everything right for my country and be honorable and just and all the things. And like characters who are too perfect and who want to be that good, honestly, just not frustrate me, but I don't gel with them. I find it really boring when they're that perfect and a little bit preachy about everything. Like it's just not the right character persona for me.
That it is February 28th. Another month has wrapped up here. I did actually wind up finishing another book before the end of the month, and that was Storm and Shield by J.D. Evans. This is the second book in the Mages of the Wheel, or Wheel of Mages, something like that series. First book, Reign and Ruin, was on my Kindle Unlimited TBR. It is not the book that I thought that I would have finished before the end of the year. Before the end of the month, I definitely would have thought that I was going to finish The Endless War by Danielle L. Jensen, which is one of my 25 books to read in 2025, because I was, I think, 70-ish% of the way into that one when I last checked in, but I just wasn't feeling it the other night, and so I wound up picking up Storm and Shield instead. The first 25% of that book was so painfully slow that I was like really kind of dreading it, but I wanted to keep reading on in it because it is part of like an overall series. So how this series works is that we are getting an overarching, it is a romantasy series, and we're getting like an overarching world like plot, like fantasy magical issue over the course of the series, but each book then introduces and features a new couple. The world problem here is that it gets a little bit complicated with like history, but essentially there are 6 kinds of elemental magic in this world: air and earth, fire and water, destruction and creation. And a really long time ago, some destruction mages like did a bad thing and whatever. Now everybody hates them. And in one particular country, they were like totally decimated. Everybody was killed that had destruction magic, versus another country where people, fled to. So these two countries have kind of been long since enemies, but now they are both facing down the threat of the Republic, which is anti-magic altogether. So our main character in the first book, our two main characters in the first book, are each like from these two separate countries, and they believe that if they can unite the two countries together, not like officially, but if they can at least like come up with some sort of like treaty, etc., that they could band together to be strong enough to oppose the Republic. We have met both of our characters before. We are following Bashir and Isel. Bashir is the commander of the guard for the female heroine in the first book, the Sultana, and he is an earth mage. And then Isel is, she's a spy, and her family like are loyal to and work for Makram, who is the hero from the first book. He's the prince from that other country. At the beginning of this book, like circumstances have changed at the end of the last book that Isel and her family are now like refugees leaving that other country. So when they arrive in this country with Naime, etc., and Bashir, where Bashir lives, her weapons are confiscated from her as part, like, in order to enter the refugee camp, but her and her family believe that they are being chased down by assassins. And so the first night that they arrive, she breaks into the palace, like guard, whatever, and steals her weapons back. And so Bashir, she's found out, but Bashir then spends the whole first quarter plus some, referring to her as a criminal, like constantly. And it's so unnecessary. She was taking back her own weapons to protect her family, and she is doing so like in work, in like grand scheme work for Macram, which he knows. The whole time he's referring to her as a criminal. He knows all of these things, and he just like can't get it out of his head that she's a criminal. And so that really, really bugged me. And then on top of that, I just felt like everything was like really, really boring kind of in the first bit of the book. Something shifted, and so I stalled out. I think I started reading this in January. But when I picked it up the other night, I wound up getting to in and around the 30% mark, and something shifted in the dynamic in the relationship. There was a lot more like just kind of acceptance of the vibe that they were feeling, and some progression in terms of relationship elements that helped me get on board with it. It really, really did focus on the relationship. Like these are books that are about the relationship in the same way that like Grace Raven's Radiance is about that relationship. It's just that this fantasy world and this magic system and this political plot are much more better developed than that other example, even though like no hate on Radiance, it's amazing. Hardly anything happened plot-wise in this book, even more so compared to the first book, which looking back, I would say actually not that much happened plot-wise, but there was a lot more like political discussions and political maneuvering. So that book at least felt like stuff was happening and we were getting introduced to everything. Whereas this one in comparison just felt like nothing happened. We did like leave off at a place where like things have progressed within the overarching series plot for sure, but like in a minuscule amount. I read a really good review on Goodreads who commented on for having a hero who is someone who is inherently really like calm and even and like even keeled and grounded, etc. He spent the entire book being like fumbling and off kilter and a little bit of like a mess and like struggling and like losing his temper kind of thing. So it was almost disappointing to have the potential for a hero who is really, really even keeled to then just be spending the whole book not his best self, which was kind of unfortunate. I will say that like once the two kind of get over themselves and like make this like more of a thing, they start interacting much better, and they actually do have a lot in common. And it was really nice to see them like almost play with each other in those times when they're like, hey, we have things in common, like this would be really fun if we like planned to go and do this one time. Like that was really, really great. But this is definitely one where the vibe between the relationship is that this is a guy who's always like even keeled and controlled in his temper, whatever, and he's met someone who rattles him, and like that's the thing. So if you don't like that, know that. But I definitely wanted to continue on in this world series at large. So for me, this was a little bit of like getting through this book, but again, like I did get more into it at the 30% mark and just kind of accepted this one for what it was. I know a lot of people really like elemental magic systems, and I'm someone who like, could take it or leave it in terms of magic systems. Like I don't, it's not something that I strongly care about, but I appreciate when it is done really, really well. And I will say that this elemental magic, I think, is really unique in that the author is doing some really interesting and unique things. Like she's using different elements in ways that I wouldn't necessarily have automatically thought of them being used. And I really, really think that's something that is unique about this system, is that about this series, is that she is using the elements in imaginative and creative and unique ways. So I really, really appreciate that about this series overall. And I hope to, keep taking away at this series. February altogether was kind of a weird month. I feel like it never really got going in a book sense. Like I've spent most of the month being frustrated that I didn't have audiobooks because none were available at the library, and some of like the books wound up being all really like fine, but just like none of them were what I wanted to read exactly, and where I was feeling so on top of my priorities in January, and they were all books that I wanted to pick up. In this month, it felt just like I wasn't being as intentional in my reading. But that being said, I did check off some things. So I think I read one of my 25 books to read in 2025. So I'll show you like a little update here in terms of where we are at now for those books. And then in addition to the books that I talked about, I also did read Heartless Hunter and To Poison a King, which I will leave you to hear my thoughts for those in the romantasy, the books that I'm skeptical about vlog that is going to be coming out in March. I just have one more book to read for that. So once I finish The Endless War, I'm going to pick up the book that I need to finish out that project vlog. So that should definitely be coming up in March, although I also have a lot of recap videos that I would like to do for March. We'll see if they actually happen, but that's the plan for my videos in March anyway. And then I'm also considering doing a readathon, which is not really been my vibe on this channel lately, but I'm feeling really empowered and like I want to do something about Asunder and getting more awareness and spotlight and more reviews and ratings for books that really, really A, deserve it, and B, really need it to support those authors in their endeavors, in their creative endeavors, as well as like financially supporting them. So if you too really, really liked Asunder and feel passionately about supporting that particular book, but also other books that are underhyped and underrated, if that is something that you feel really, really passionate about and that you would perhaps like to be involved in terms of a readathon in either April or May, not only like stay tuned for that, but if you'd like to be involved from it from like a channel perspective, or if you have a Bookstagram or Book Talk or a blog, please reach out to me. I would love to, I have some ideas, like I generally have like what I would like to do and get out of this readathon, but I would love more support and more names and eyes, etc., getting this idea out there. Message me, I think, through Goodreads is the best way to get in contact with me right now, and all of my contact information for Goodreads is down below, so you can message me on Goodreads if you'd like to be involved. Otherwise, stay tuned for readathon announcement type stuff in the future, and I will see you guys in my next video. Have a great day, everyone. I'll see you next time. Bye.